All right, let's be honest. If we were trying to reach as many students as possible in one shot, we wouldn't start with a Wednesday night series.
Yeah, we'd probably head to the one place that they have to be 5 days a week, campus.
Here's the thing. Most students you want to reach, man, they're spending over 1,200 hours a year in school. Compare that to maybe 50 hours a year in your student ministry if they come often, which one's the bigger mission field for us?
Yeah, and yet a lot of pastors avoid campus because they think it's either off limits, too complicated, or not worth the effort.
What if you could walk through the doors with confidence? What if you could connect with the gatekeepers? What if you could actually see real gospel impact and fruit on a campus without adding a ton of stress to your week?
Today, we're going to talk unscripted about why the school campus might be the most strategic and overlooked mission field in your city and the steps that you can take this week to get started.
This is Shaping Student Ministry, and you're listening to the one about taking the gospel to school campuses.
I believe that we stand on the verge of a historic moment.
You ask them what it is about rock and roll music that they like, and the first thing they'll say is the beat, the beat, the beat.
I found pardon for my past, power for the present, bright prospect for the future.
If you talk to the average teenager of today, I know what it does to you.
That could have an unparalleled and unprecedented impact.
I've got a story to tell. Have you?
Welcome back. Listen, we're going to we thought about naming this one this, and I don't know if we're going to name it or not. John's in charge of that. But I will tell you, this is kind of a rushed one. We are just lowly, humble pastors as well. And sometimes our weeks are crazy, and we do a lot helping other guys, but we know that what we got to send out is good. And sometimes we just don't have the time to script it. So other than that amazing cold open, this is our one half unscripted. But we thought about the idea that we're starting back. A lot of you are either in school already or you're about to have your students in school like me. Mine go back this Thursday.
Mine started August 1st, which is terrible.
Terrible.
Yeah.
And I like starting my students. If you start August 1st, it's hard to start student ministry back like that. But
public schools did, but the private schools had their stuff together and they started like the end of last week.
Yeah,
it's still so early. Weird.
Well, mine's starting August 20th, and so August 21st. I'm sorry, they start on the 14th. So I'm going to let that start, and then that next Wednesday I kick off. But
they start soon.
Yeah. So, but here's the thing. This is always debated, and it doesn't matter. I mean, age is not always an issue. It's easy. More younger guys do it. A lot of older guys, vintage guys that I love deeply because
are we vintage?
I think we are now. But I've been doing this since before I was vintage. So really, I feel like I've just held my value. I don't feel like I've gained any value. I'm just there.
Yeah.
I'm still worth $10, right? And so that being said, but I do have some sweet Funko Pops behind me.
You do.
One of them's of me. Anyway, but I would tell you this. There is a reality check here. And I know we talk to guys from Canada to Alaska to Texas to New England. And we've even got people all over the world listening to what we're doing. And I know that not every context is necessarily the same. But when you talk about, if there's something that I could spend 45 minutes on just by myself on a stage talking about, it's campus ministry, because I think that it's vital. And I think that there's a lot of ways to do it depending on your context. But we're going to talk about all that today. John does campus ministry differently than I do it. And a lot of other people do it differently too. But here's the reality check. Campus is probably the most strategic student ministry option that you have for mission field for students, right? It is the place in Matthew 9:36. And we have a workbook if you end up becoming a member with us, and so many more people are. As we're adding to it, there's a great workbook that is about it's called Find, Engage, and Connect. And it's the student ministry philosophy that I used as an overarching set of principles to run my ministries. And it's in Matthew 9:36 is where it's based out of. And Jesus says, he looks, and we're all familiar with the passage, but as Jesus sees people, he begins to heal them, and they're oppressed like a sheep without a shepherd. And then he tells them, hey, the harvest is plentiful. So pray for the Lord of the harvest to send workers into the field. And my thing is, there is no greater field for student ministry than the schools, than a public school or any school, because students, even, there's just such a small amount of people that are homeschooled. I was one of them. And even homeschoolers do things usually along the schedules of public school. And so it's an incredibly strategic time. Students will spend over 1,200 hours a year in school. They're there almost as long than they are awake at home, or the longer. And they'll maybe spend, if they're a regular attender, 50 hours with you. So it absolutely just makes sense. But when I was doing a lot of I used to spend about 20 hours on on church campuses. Not everybody can do that, and this is not about that. But I just watched my student ministries anywhere I went explode largely because I built relationships with students where they're at, and they knew me because I went where they went. I went to the fields that were ripe for harvest. And so that's kind of the big thing for us, is why campus ministry is so incredibly important. And I remember going to campuses and spending a lot of time on there, and I would ask the question. I was one of 2 guys that did it, and the other guy didn't do it very often. And I asked the principal. I was on texting relationship with all 3 principals in my county. And I said, why does nobody come? And they said, well, we've offered everybody and just nobody will. And I thought, what a stupid thing to do, especially if somebody invites you, that you would not try. And it needs to not just be a bolt-on to your ministry. It needs to be a core area of how your ministry operates.
Yeah. It's got to be a pillar for you, because it's a huge place to go. And like you said, I mean, it can be done a lot of different ways. I know guys that go up and have lunch, and they sit there a lot. And look, campus ministry for guys that's
what I did.
Like you said, the more vintage of us, those who know that student ministry post-COVID is very different than pre-COVID.
Yeah.
In terms of places, I think a lot of guys feel like it's illegal to go on campus because policies changed. It got a little harder. But I think that ultimately just means you got to get a little more creative in the ways in which you're getting on campus. And I think for me, everybody's always, and anybody in leadership knows this, there's always people contacting you wanting something.
Right.
And that's the same way when there's, you imagine just in your city, unless you're kind of a rarity, kind of like Dennis Wagner, where Dennis Wagner's over in Yanis, and he's like the only guy. I think there's like him and a Methodist guy are the only 2 in their whole place. But in terms of like where I live, if there's as many Dollar Generals as there are churches. I mean, there are churches everywhere. So if you can just imagine there being probably 40 youth pastors trying to get into a school campus, there's a little bit of leeriness, and they make it a little bit harder because you don't want to just have random people showing up. And so then how do you then add value? And I think that's one of the things that we think through is how,
one of the things we talk a lot about in cohorts is
how can we add value to our campuses and get creative in those ways.
I'll tell you, I met a lot of guys who, and this is kind of an ode to, depending on the culture, right? The North is going to be different than the South in the U.S. There's very different worlds, right? And the West is a lot different than the East. And so depending on where you're at, some of this can be different. But I do remember that because there is an element of danger, quote unquote, in showing up at a school, and there are rules for that, a lot of guys tended to stay away. And it was like, well, and here the rule. The rule is I couldn't push people to my church. I couldn't tell them about Jesus. And I even heard some guys at one point that would talk, sometimes it would come up with like, well, if the gospel's not welcome there, then I don't need to be there. And I thought that's dumb, because like you should be there, and you should be doing it. And you should be able to show up and influence people no matter what the conditions like. And sometimes we get so comfortable in worlds that were designed for us that we're not willing to go into the world that needs us. And that's what's so important about campus ministry. I mean, I see it still over and over. You think if I build a student building, they will come. It's the Field of Dreams mentality. If I have listen, you need great curriculum. We have great curriculum. You need to be, if you're not a member yet, I don't know why, jump in and do it with us. But you can't count on just series alone. You've got to be, pastors are shepherds. Shepherds are with sheep, and shepherds know their sheep. And so I remember, I think to your point, John, I remember sitting down with a student pastor, and he told me all these plans he had for a student ministry. And he had been doing student ministry in this place for a year and a half. And young guy, had a lot of fire in him, but not a lot of tempering. And so as we're talking, I'm trying to be like, hey, this is great. Are you doing these things? He just blew off everything I said, but here was the deal. He had been there for a couple of 1 to 2 years, I think. And he said, I'm so excited this is the year we're going to get in and do all this stuff in the school. And I said, that's awesome. How well do you know the principal by now? And he went, well, I don't know. I don't want to go to him until I have my plan fully in place. And I said, well, then you're already behind. Because you told me a couple of things. Now I didn't say it quite like that. And I don't think he would have heard it no matter how I said it, because I did in other ways. But here's the thing. people need to know that they are valuable simply because they are valuable, and not because they are tools for you to accomplish your goal. And one of the things that I found so incredibly helpful is that when I went, you just need to get that. You need to go and show up at school, and you need to take Sonic drinks to those ladies up front, usually ladies that are overseeing everything that's going on, because those ladies keep everything running, and you need to let them know they're valuable. And then you need to connect anywhere you can with coaches, with teachers, with people like that. But when you can connect with the principal, even if it's sending handwritten notes or something, hey, I'm praying for you today, I'm doing this, there is a moment where you will get the opportunity. And when you get that opportunity to speak with them, it does not need to be, hey, I've got these great ideas for you. Can I do them? Because then you're also, like you said, you're asking something from them. The question I used to ask was, because I figured this out very quickly. Hey, what is it that nobody is willing to do? And they would say, what is it willing to do for you that you need done? And they'd say, well, most of our churches, they just do the clean school initiative and they help us clean up. And I said, well, that's great. You've got churches doing that. I don't want that. I want the thing that nobody will do. And they're like, and they would just kind of stop for a minute. And I remember what got me into a school to serve and to invest in kids, and largely to see my kids. Because the goal of going to school is not that you go and you start evangelizing every student there. The goal is that you show up and empower your current students by sitting down with them and not only talking about life and bringing Jesus and the whole relationship into their everyday, but then you also help them understand how easy it is to connect with their friends. And then their friends sit around, and pretty soon, and you got to do it. Listen, if to do something once or twice builds no trust. The point is to build consistency and trust. So don't go into it going, I'm going to be at school 5 days a week. Just pick Mondays or Tuesdays or Thursdays or whatever, and just show up. And I remember one time I asked this principal, and I had the budget. I didn't have a huge budget, but I didn't have a small budget. And he just said, I can't afford to do a barbecue for my teachers this year. And I had 2 schools that eventually did this, but one of them said, he said, I don't have that. And he said, I can't let you in for lunches to hang out at lunches, which I loved. And if you think you look awkward being old and walking into there, you need to get over that. Like, that's an insecurity thing for you. That's not and you don't need to be awkward about it. You just need to go in and see your kids. And I'd point at them across the lunchroom and go, Bill, hey. And they go, I'd say, hey, where are you sitting? And they would be so pumped. They go, oh, I'm here. And then just sit down and own the place. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
But I remember
it's always funny. It's always funny. I've been in there before and they're a little weird here now, like post COVID about lunch. And so I don't go for lunch anymore. I go typically after school, but
I think COVID gave a lot of people that didn't want pastors in an excuse to hold them out of lunches.
100%.
So
100%.
And I'm not telling you can do that everywhere, but we're getting to some practical stuff. So keep going.
Yeah. 100%. But it was always funny to me, because you'd have the guys who like, I don't feel like I'm supposed to be here. And then if you act like you're not supposed to be there, you're not supposed to be there, they'll tell you you're not,
Well,
but,
it was crazy. We just ended up spending about $400 on hot dogs, and I got a volunteer to grill. And from that moment, not only did they ask me to pray over everybody, and they called me the chaplain of the school when they said that, like, just as a, hey, Ian's pretty much the chaplain of school. And I used a relationship with one of the administrators to get connected to the principal, who went to church nowhere and didn't know anything, but loved what we did, to the point, from that point on, I could go anywhere I wanted to go. We had they had a ninth grade cafeteria and then a regular one. And I'd go back and forth. And I remember a student lied about me, and they called me into the office. And it's even more nerve wracking when you're a student pastor and you get called into the office. And I got called in, and I remember he played me a phone conversation of a woman. And she said, I don't know who this guy was, but he was a student pastor. And my kid, he told my kid they were going to go to hell and they needed to come to church and all this stuff. And I just went, oh, I never said that, but this is it. This is going to be that moment. Somebody ruined it by lying. And the principal turned it off and said, I just want you to know, I had to agree with her and say that's wrong, but I know you didn't say that, and I know that's not you. So we're going to pull you out of that ninth grade cafeteria for the rest of the semester, keep you with us, and then we're going to let you back in when it all starts again. He said, but you just need to know we got your back. And the truth is, if you will show up in any way you can, and this means at our D-Nows, I just asked them how we took all of our students and we cleaned up school campuses while school wasn't even in. My thing is, become somebody, some people call it become the unicorn, where like you are the sought after person that everybody wants, like in the business world. I would just tell you, if your student ministry can disappear and nobody would know that you disappear, I know that's a really common thing, but I think it's important that they're only the people that should know your student ministry should be sad. And you should, like, I know it's not sexy and cool to say that you're doing campus ministry, but that's what discipleship and evangelism are built on, is on relationships and the places that matter most. And I'm just telling you, I know we're going to say a couple more things, then we're going to go to the second half. And the second half, I'm going to give you 3 or 4 really important and really easy and cost-effective ways. One of them is not cost-effective, but most of them are, of how you can got to help everybody. Some people have big budgets, some people have small budgets.
That's
but across
right.
the board, we're going to show you how to do that. But I'm just going to tell you, you need to understand that if you're not building a relationship with your schools now, you're already late. And if you're not asking them, what can I do for you, instead of, can you let me do what I want to do, then you're asking the wrong question. And if they tell you you can do what all the other churches do, well, you're not meeting a need if you do that. And I'm going to say something that's really controversial, and I need you to, I think it's controversial probably for a lot of people, but maybe not our listeners because they know us. But I'm going to say this. If the only thing you can do is get into an FCA or a priority, first priority club or whatever, do it. But I'm just going to tell you right now, that is not your end goal. And it should not be. Because you want to know who's there? The Christian kids.
Yep.
And you can say, no, there's people that sure, there are people that show up, but I'm just going to tell you, it's the same thing as saying, well, we do all of our evangelism on Sunday morning. Really? Because you think there's a lot of lost kids coming to church at Sunday at 9 a.m.? No. That might be an inlet for you, but the world doesn't need more Christian clubs necessarily. I'm not saying they're bad if you do them. I think they're important. They have their place. But there are more student pastors than Christian clubs would allow to lead. I'm telling you that we need more guys that are intentionally in the lunchrooms, on the football field, on the lacrosse field, that are at baseball games, at camp events, or at band camp. We need more guys that show up in the places that nobody is there to show up for. And it happens on the school campus. The church should be the biggest advocate for this. I cannot tell you. I wish I could. There was a letter. I've never been able to find it. And I heard a pastor talk about it. And now I'm just going to tell you this, though. I'm going to risk it as a guy that got a degree in history. But there is a letter supposedly that I remember from Caesar Augustus to, I can't remember who it was, but it was one of his governors. And it was a private letter. Nobody saw it. And they made the statement. He said, because Rome was full of illegitimate kids, and in Rome, family name meant something. So when you had illegitimate kids, that was not good. It was just like, I don't care who you sleep with, but I care that you have kids and that your name carries auctoritas, that has power. But I remember there was this moment where the emperor of the Roman Empire, the most powerful entity that had ever existed, and until the British Empire, I think is the most powerful entity that exists. He looked and he said, I don't know what it is that makes these Christians stay married and stay faithful to one another and have families, but we need to figure out what it is and how we can do it. And that if they don't, there was a moment where they didn't say we need to follow Christ, and that was never the issue, but the issue was there is something so unique about the way that they conduct themselves that I wish our people would do that. Mm-hmm. And I think that as churches, we have got to be at that point. I'm telling you, I had a team of 3 people, and we all spent 15 to 20 hours a week on school campuses. And I'm not telling you have to do that. All it could take is an hour a week, 2 hours a week, just during your lunch period, take a lunch off and go sit with students. But those moments, and that may be uncomfortable because the world and the ministry world they have bred you so often and built you to be people that pass the conversation and not have it. But to sit down and get past the 4th question and say, who are you? John, that's so cool. Well, John, tell me, what's your favorite class here? Oh, man, I had this class when I was in high school, and I thought this was great. Well, you play sport. Oh, what do you play? Oh, man, you over there. And start talking with them and listen, I'm giving away paid ideas right now. But every time you have a first-time guest, they should fill out what school they go to, and you could go on Thursdays, and Thursday could be your day, and you could take first-time guests Chick-fil-A sandwiches if your church lets you. I used to do that. I literally would come with a bag of 20 sandwiches when we had a big student ministry, and I always bought extra, and I could go, what, first time guest, can I have one? I would go, yeah, I got extras. And we would toss sandwiches all over, and I didn't even eat. I just walked around, and then you want to know what I did? I helped clean up the lunchroom in between lunches with them. I became indispensable, not because I was great, but because I knew there was no value to me unless I did that for them. Mm-hmm. And John, you had the best way of saying it. We need to find out how we can be of value. There's a term in sales, felt need and real need. Mm-hmm. And if you can meet a felt need, which is, we don't have anybody to clean up the cafeteria. Oh, nobody scrubs the toilets once a month in this building, and I just need that. Oh, nobody can pay for my barbecue. Oh, if you can meet a felt need, then all of a sudden you're going to be in a position where you can meet a real need. And that is, these students need to know they're loved outside of this church. These people, and I stopped asking kids at one point. Here's a free tip. Don't ask them, are you coming to church? Because even my kids, I could ask that. Eventually I had a kid look at me and he said, you only care if we come to church. And I vowed from that day on, I would never do it. I just wanted to know they were loved because they were loved.
Well, and I'll tell you to that point too. I quit taking pictures when I go to school events.
Oh yeah, that's an interesting one.
I quit taking pictures when I went to school events because I had students tell me, you only come for the photo op. Yeah. And I determined.
But that's true, John. Yeah, you always photo everywhere.
Well, just
kidding.
I determined 12 years ago I wasn't going to do it. And I don't. Unless a student wants to take a picture, I don't. And it's one of those things that sometimes it can come across like, well, he's not ever there. But in fact, I'm just not photo documenting it because I feel like it's more value. Yeah, I feel like the students feel like there's more value to it, you know.
We should do social media, the one about social media ministry, because you're right. I would tell you there, and if you're sitting there going, well, I don't know how to let them know I was there, here's maybe a good hybrid, because you just got to listen to your students where they're at. Just post the picture of the event, not even of you, and then tag people in it, right? But I'm not telling you, John, you got to listen. That's what got me. Yeah, you got to listen to the needs. You got to respond to them, because I never got that one, but I did get, well, stop. You're only asking that for that, and I genuinely wasn't. But then I said it wasn't about, and John's hitting a good point. It's not truth is truth, but we also, in the areas where we can worry about perception, that has a lot to do with how we deal with perception, has a lot to do with what doors are opened. And sometimes we feel like that's a pride thing, but if you can step out of that and say, that's not about me, that's about how they perceive it, and then make a change, man, people notice change, and they notice when you make the change. So that'll be, I guess that's going to be it for the for our first half, right? But I will say this: we're going to talk about 3 major ideas that you can interact in the next month, and ways to follow up with administrators and teachers, how to build good relationships, and do all of that on the other side of the wall. And we even have, we'll tell you about if you are on the other side of the wall, you're paying, and you'll get a part of our resource library. So here's what we're going to tell you. You becoming a member is what allows us to continue to do what we do. We need that. There are men and women all over the country serving students that are absolutely, like even today, we had 3 or 4 people that were able to join. It is $27 a month. And I'm telling you, it doesn't matter if you go, everybody goes to one place for games, one place for curriculum, 3 places for curriculum. Your people are suffering from curriculum fatigue. They're tired of learning a new system every 3 weeks. Man, go to the place that absolutely it has everything you need. And when it doesn't, and if it doesn't for some reason, which is rare, you can actually message the people that make the stuff.
You reach out to us and tell us what the need is.
Yep. The link is down below. You can click on it. If not, it's just shapingstudentministry.com, and you can immediately click to become a member. And you can click on any one of those 4 tabs to see the curriculum and the games and the tools that we offer. You just can't access them. I'm sorry. That's how it is. We all got to eat. So love you guys. We'll see you on the other wall.